Dear Nintendo, please do not give up retail presence for digital success. I don't know if you guys noticed this lately, but it really seems hard nowadays to find Nintendo games at retail. Back in the day, there was one constant. No matter what, no matter where you went, you could always find a Nintendo made game when you wanted it. Sitting on the shelves, behind the glass. Nintendo, no matter what console, no matter how they were doing it at the time, always made sure their games were on the market, were at stores for you to go buy on day one, a month later, a year later. Nintendo games were always available for the consumer until now. Even though this has been going on for a while now, with Nintendo slowly but surely wanting gamers to buy digital versions of their content through their eShop, through their consoles, Nintendo is actually undershipping a lot of their products to retailers. And at this point, this is a very illogical move. First, let me say this. I'm not going to sit here and say this is fact. I'm just giving you an observation I've made in my own local area. We all remember the retail fiasco of Fire Emblem Awakening for the Nintendo 3DS. Basically, the game was undershipped and you can never ever find it in any stores. And this went on for a while. Even the mega hit Animal Crossing New Leaf for the Nintendo 3DS has suffered a quite similar pattern, but not to the same extent. Well, I have noticed that the past four releases for Nintendo consoles have all been quite undershipped at my stores. And in some case, if you didn't pre-order the game, you didn't receive a copy. Starting with Gaming Wario for the Nintendo Wii U, my GameStop only received 5 copies. Next we have Pikmin 3 for the Wii U, with only 10 copies in store. Followed by Mario & Luigi Dream Team, only 10 copies for sale. And then most recently, yesterday, the new Super Luigi Brothers game received only 5 copies in my store. I have also been informed by my GameStop manager friend that Nintendo is no longer supplying them with brand new copies of a few games for their consoles. Currently in my city, at all GameStops, you will not find a brand new copy of Star Fox 64 3D or Kid Icarus Uprising for the Nintendo 3DS for sale. Actually, if you get on several websites for GameStop, Walmart, and even Target, in some cases, these games do not even have listings anymore. And then I noticed, at least in my hometown, but I assume this sale was nationwide, Toys R Us recently had a buy a 3DS and receive one of those games for free. This clearly indicates that they are trying to move out all their remaining stock of these two titles. While we can clearly see these games were not major retail blockbusters, the one advantage Nintendo has always had when it comes to retail and their games is the fact that their games are what we call evergreen titles, meaning they sell on beyond the launch date, beyond the launch month, months, years later. And part of this is due to the availability of those games after the release of them. If Nintendo is going to remove these games from retail because of lack of success, then actually they're damaging the evergreen process that they've championed for so many years. How can you go purchase a game years later if it's not available years later? Now, after making that statement, I understand that's the purpose of digital distribution. Being able to buy the game digitally from the comfort of your own home at your own leisure. And while that does make perfect sense, you have to remember the Nintendo fan user base, the Nintendo consumer, is probably the late to the game when it comes to digital distribution. And quite honestly, the average Nintendo fan champions the fact that they are still a majority retail company. For a Nintendo consumer, buying retail have sort of a nostalgia type effect due to Nintendo's long history at retail, buying box art, buying cartridges, storing them, keeping them, collecting them. So for the average Nintendo consumer and gamer who may understand digital distribution and downloading games, will prefer or rather have a retail copy for those other factors. Then there are those consumers who buy Nintendo content but will not buy digitally due to their belief of Nintendo having a archaic type structure, especially when you compare it to the likes of Microsoft, Apple, and Steam. And finally, the expanded casual market that Nintendo has successfully sold to for generations. The moms, the pops, the grandmothers, the person who see a product on TV through advertisement, who then wants to go to the store and find that product to buy it. What are you doing to them if they can't find that game that they just saw on TV at their local Target, Best Buy, or Walmart? And finally, overall, probably my biggest argument when it comes to Nintendo still needing to supply a mass supply of retail copies of games at retailers to sell is the overall retail space at retail locations across the world. You can always tell how successful a company is doing, how successful a product is selling, about the amount of space it has at a store. Go to Best Buy. How many consoles are available at the time you go in? How much space the console has to stack? Same for game copies. Same for any piece of merchandise you will find anywhere. If it sells the best, it's a lot of it. If it sells the worst, you can't find it at all. If Nintendo is sabotaging their retail presence in hopes for major digital success, actually, they're sabotaging their home console. They're sabotaging their video game business. There's no fact that the Wii U is not selling extremely well right now across hardware and software. But still, due to the success of the DS, the 3DS, and the Nintendo Wii, the Wii U is, in the eyes of retailers, given a chance. Will be given a chance. Will allow to flounder and sit around until it finally break on through. The main issue with the Wii U right now is the lack of software, is the lack of content to put in retailers in a space to present to the consumers. With the overall third-party support being mostly from indie gamers, you can't expect a lot of third-party content to help add more space, to add more width to the Nintendo section at these retailers' locations. So it's up to Nintendo themselves to provide vast majority of copies of their content to be the showcase for what their console and what their product is about. It is always best to have something presented than to have nothing to show at all. And with Nintendo not providing a vast majority, a vast supply of retail games, with the lack of third-party support from other developers to help take up the slack, and then the arrival of two brand new consoles coming at the end of this year, with still several other older consoles still in the market that are selling pretty decently, Nintendo could paint themselves in a corner to where even they would not be able to get out of. Dear Nintendo, please remember this when it comes to future releases like The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD, like Wonderful 1, like Super Mario Bros. 3D World. Better yet, treat every game you release on your console as if it's a major title, as if it's the game that everybody must have, and supply it accordingly. Thank you.